Hello, welcome back. I want to have a very short segment here on just a very few rules about inheritance. These things seem to be tricky for people, and I want to have just one place where you can go and look at the rules for inheritance, some very specific ones. So, what gets inherited? First of all, nothing that's private is accessible outside of the class. So in almost all cases, your instance variables are going to be private, and that means that they're available only within the class, and that implies that they don't get inherited into the subclass. So if we say that an animal has a weight, and a dog is an animal, does that mean that the dog class has a weight? Well, it does and it doesn't. A dog does have a weight, but the weight variable is not available in the dog class. The things that are public, like get weight and set weight, would be available in the subclass because those are inherited. So son has a slightly different definition of inheritance than what's been used typically in the C++ community. So in case you're familiar with that definition of inheritance, let's think about in Java. Son's definition is if it's available in the subclass, if it's visible in the subclass, then it is inherited. That's their definition. So nothing private is inherited. Everything public is inherited except for constructor methods. So you cannot directly call a constructor method in the subclass. We saw in the last segment that you do call the parent's constructor, but you don't call it by name. You call it by using the super keyword as the first line in the subclass constructor. So any other method that's public, including toString and accessors and mutators, all of those are inherited in the subclass. Now we have this new access modifier protected. Everything that's protected in the parent class is inherited into the subclass. So what is the difference between protected, public, and private? Private, you know, only is accessible within that class. No one outside of that class can see that identifier, either a variable or a method name. If it's public, everyone outside can see it. And if it's protected, then we have something in between. Protected means that anyone outside can see it, but only if they're in the same folder. So I kind of like the C++ word for this. They call it friend as the access modifier. There's no such identifier as friend in Java, but it kind of means who do you trust with your data and your methods. Protected means that you trust the people who are writing code within the same folder. And in Java, a folder is a package. So when you see that little thing that looks like a bale of hay in Eclipse, that's a package. And all of our classes have been within the same package. So public and protected for us would be the same thing. But as the projects get larger, you want to allow some people access to your data, but not everyone. So you trust the people who are working in the same folder if you make your data or methods protected, but you don't trust the people who are working outside of the folder. This would be a typical situation if you are writing some Java classes and you're going to package them up and sell them. You could make things protected that you trust yourself to have access to, but you don't want to allow the people who purchase your Java classes, and the dog says hello, you don't want to trust the people who purchase your Java classes to have direct access to your data in particular. Okay, let's talk about final. Final is a modifier for methods, classes, and variables. And we've already looked at a final variable, and that's how you create a constant. I hate to say the expression final variable because it's a variable that doesn't vary. Once you have a value assigned to a variable that's final, it cannot be changed. So final can also be a modifier on your methods and your classes, and it also means that something can't be changed. So let's think about a method first. How do you change a method? And I don't mean go in to the editor and edit the code changing the method. I mean at runtime, how would you change the method? Well, you inherit it into a subclass and you override it. So if we had a method that was final, then the compiler would not allow us to override that method in the subclass. What are the implications of that? It means that if you have a final method, all of the subclasses must inherit your method and they can't change it. So the behavior in your final method is available in all of the subclasses. There's also an implication there that a final method must be inherited. So a private final method wouldn't make any sense and it won't compile. But a final public method means that all of the subclasses will have that method and that method will not be changed in the subclasses. One more, a class can be modified with the keyword final. So you can have public final class or final public class, it doesn't matter which. And a final class cannot be extended. So the compiler would recognize that if you tried to extend a class that's final, you won't be allowed to. So how do you change a class? Well, you extend it. You inherit from a class and then you add some stuff to make it a subclass. And the final classes will not be extended. Why would you do this? Why would you want to prevent someone from extending the class when we just got through understanding that that's a good thing to do, and now we have a mechanism for preventing it from happening? The issue here is, well, there's a few of them, but one of them is when you make some Java classes and you package it up and sell it to someone else, they could extend your classes, give your classes new names, and then package that up and sell it to somebody else. And you don't want that to happen. So when you're making a bunch of Java classes and you're going to put them on the market for someone else to use, you would make some of the key ones final classes so that they couldn't be extended and the functionality could not be easily duplicated and effectively stealing your work and selling it to someone else. Well, that's one of the reasons for having a final class. It might be that you just don't want someone to change your class, and you can decide to make it a final class. Okay, that's all. Access modifiers, we have a new one now, protected, and that means package access. Anything within the package, any of the classes that are in the same folder would be able to have access to the protected data or methods. Private, within the class only. Public, anyone can see it. And the final modifier, a variable or a method or a class. It means that you can't do something if it's modified with final. Variables can't be assigned a new value if they're final variables. Methods cannot be overridden if they're final. And classes, if you modify a class with final, it can't be extended. That's all.